Uh, Hello, everybody. It's Dr. Rick Wallace checking in with you guys on this Sunday morning. I hope everybody has finished off the previous week on a good and positive note, and are you ready to start this new week off with inspired passion, renewed passion, a sense of focus, a sense of direction, a sense of determination, and you are now ready to graduate and elevate yourselves towards doing something uh, at a new level. I talk a lot about living life at the level of your design, and I may get a little bit into that here, but I definitely want to encourage you to examine your design, to look inside of yourself, to be more engaged with yourself and understanding who you are based on your makeup, based on how you are naturally gifted to operate and act, not on how you've been influenced to behave or how you've been influenced to act or what you've been told is a good job for you. I'm gonna share something with you, and then I'm gonna move on real quickly. There's a huge difference between your job and your work. When you're truly functioning in life and you're centered in your purpose and you're really truly moving, your job and your work will become one. But your job is what you get paid to do. Your work is what you were designed and gifted to do. It is what is inherently embedded in your spiritual and genetic makeup, your DNA on all levels. You will find the significance of who you are hidden in your design. You will discover your purpose hidden in your design. You will discover a sense of identity and passion hidden in your design when you begin to examine yourself and look inside of yourself and stop looking to other people to define who you are. Stop looking to other people to validate you. Stop looking to other people to give you permission to be. Start looking inside of yourself and discovering yourself, and it is there that you will uncover this massive potential, this unbelievable energy and push that will be the thrust of your passion when you look inside of yourself. That is so important, because when you do that, when you discover, I tell people all the time that your design is indicative of your purpose. When you really examine your design, your natural temperament, your personality, the things that you do good naturally, that's indicative of why you're here. Everything has a purpose. Nothing is simply existing in a vacuum. Nothing simply happens in a vacuum. We don't simply take action and behave based on nothingness. Everything has a purpose. Absolutely everything. It is this belief that there's all of these insignificant moments in life that rob us of so much potential and power, because we believe certain things are insignificant, because we believe certain things are coincidence, because we believe that unless it's this, this, or this, it really doesn't matter. And we tend to dismiss so much of what's influencing our life that we never, ever truly live at the level of our design. Good morning, little bro. Will Williamson, good morning. We never really truly live at the level of our design because we're consistently dismissing things that has purpose. It wasn't until I really started looking at this, man, almost 20 years ago, and I started looking at where I was failing in certain areas of life consistently. I was having all of this massive success in areas of business and finance, but my personal relationships, especially in the area of romance, so to speak, I have a whole different perspective on romance. So I'm just using that to be analogous to what I'm talking about. But we'll get into that on a different time. But when I looked at this, okay, man, this is an area where I'm really struggling. So I'm going to step back from it. I'm not going to do it again at any significant level until I figure this thing out. I started researching. I started trying to understand things. And I started to look at what I was learning in behavioral science and performance science, the techniques I was using to train and teach my clients, as well as work on myself in other areas. And it said, okay, there are principles that apply, but they don't simply apply to areas that you want to improve in. They apply across life. Remember, your natural thrust in life, or your natural push, will always be to reach what's called holistic equilibrium. Holistic equilibrium means that I'm in oneness, mind, body, spirit, and soul. That means I'm physically healthy, emotionally healthy, mentally healthy, and spiritually healthy. And I'm functioning on the same frequency in every area, because when I lose that equilibrium, when I get to a point of disequilibrium, when something is off, whether it's physically, whether it's mentally, emotionally, or spiritually, when it's off, it starts to create imbalances and pressures and pushes in other areas. That's how you get something that's known as psychosomatics, where you have these mental stressors that start to cause you to become ill and sick physically, because you're connected. And when you tend to try to say, okay, I'm going to be a beast in business, but you're not taking care of yourself physically. I'm going to be a beast in business and I'm going to be fit, but my marriage is suffering. Why? Because you're not creating this balance in life that allows you to reach this equilibrium. And so it's extremely important that you get an understanding of who you are, and that you develop this capacity to understand your needs. And so when I started to look at how I was not really making things happen in the relationship area, and it could have been easy for me at the time to sit up and say, well, it was their fault. They did this, and they did this, so I left. It's easy to sit up and point the finger. But when I talk to my clients, when I teach my clients, one of the things I do with them is, good morning, Marley. One of the things I do with my clients is I get them to immediately enter into an environment of accountability. Yes, someone may have done something to you. Yes, this may have happened. Yes, that may have happened. But when you go back and you revisit all of the things that have happened to you in your life, all of the good, the bad, whatever, the only common denominator you find in every event in your life is you. That means that you have to have some accountability, that you own some culpability, that there are some things that you need to own and face and deal with. That those are the things that will ultimately become the deciding factors in how your life turns out. Not what other people do to you, but how you respond, what type of energy you're projecting to attract people to you. Because if you've got a consistent interlude of relationships, and it's the same type of person treating you the same type of way, you're the only common denominator. So you got to evaluate what you're doing to attract that type of person. You got to remember that energy is a resonating force. In other words, energy attracts like energy. So the energy you're emitting with your thoughts, with your thoughts. Now remember, your thoughts are seeds, but those seeds are generated from a self-image, a belief about yourself. And what you believe about yourself creates the thoughts and the energy you emit. So if you're emitting a low frequency based on some marred idea of who you are, then you're going to attract. It's not the image that you present to the public, it's the image that you believe about yourself. See, a lot of people have become very, very astute at presenting an image that says, I've got it all together, while on the inside hurting, while on the inside broken, while on the inside suffering from low or vacant self-esteem, while on the inside struggling with their own self-concept and self-image. And so when they are emitting thoughts, when they're emitting energy, when they're moving, everything that you do is an energy generator. And what you generate is what you attract. So if you look at life and you start to see that you're attracting all of this negative stuff, you got to ask yourself, where's it coming from? And so when I start to look at that in my own life, I say, whoa, I've got to literally prepare to have the right type of person. I've got to see myself differently. There are some things that I'm accepting as a reality about myself that doesn't belong to me. There were some attributes that belong to my dad, whom I didn't know personally, but I heard a lot about. Some attributes that probably are not good for sustaining monogamous relationships. And we'll just leave it at that. And because I had this desire to relate to him, I related to those things I knew about him without even knowing it. It was just so much embedded in my thoughts as a child growing up that by the time I came into puberty, where I'm now attracted to girls, there was a certain behavior. I had this unbelievable charisma to be able to draw people to me, but I had this inability to sit and stay and nurture anything. And I was always dibbling and dabbling, but and I couldn't understand it. I wanted marriage because I grew up in a home being reared by my great grandparents where I saw it and that's what I wanted. So I would go after it, but I couldn't do it. And I couldn't understand it at the time. And it's amazing how you can have this ability to help other people in certain areas and be struggling in that area quite often. And I found that to be actually a common among those of us in the field of personal performance or human behavior, is we tend to have areas in our own lives where we're not practicing what we preach. And so that was an area where I was struggling. So I decided that I was going to start developing and building and changing the energy I emitted by changing my beliefs about myself. And of course, I knew all the techniques. I've taught it to hundreds of people by that time. So I knew, I just had to go about doing it. Now that was one thing, but the one thing that came out of this in seeking this equilibrium that I'm talking about, this place where you are in harmony with yourself. It's an unbelievable place. I call it an optimal state. It's what I work very hard to bring my clients to, is this optimal state. And when you get to this optimal state, it's this place where you are prepared to deal with what comes, and you're able to manage and become more disciplined in your own behavior. Let me explain what I'm talking about. Remember, I just told you nothing happens by chance. I just told you that there is no such thing as any insignificant moment. Insignificant moments are defined by people who don't see the gravity in the moment and so dismiss it. But there are no insignificant moments. Life does not produce emptiness and void. We simply dismiss it or ignore it. And in ignoring these little small things, they tend to snowball into these larger things that we don't know how to explain because we don't know where it came from. We created it a long time ago when we ignored signs, when we ignored the opportunity, though it seemed insignificant at the moment, to make a difference and change some things. We ignored it, and so we lost it in the moment, and it showed back up to bite us in the butt. And so what I learned is that if you really want to find what drives a person, everything that a person does is to meet a need. There are what we know as essential needs that every human has, and then there are these needs that you use as guiding principles to advance. Because I've been in a situation where I've seen people who have a lot of everything. I mean, stupid rich from a financial perspective, gifted, good at business, doing everything, and absolutely miserable. And then I've seen people who have barely enough to get by and are extremely wealthy spiritually, emotionally, psychologically, and physically. They are healthy in every phase of their existence. Their mind, body, soul, spirit, physicality, and all of that is tight. And they're good. There are literally entire islands of people who, if you look at, they don't have anything, but when you look at their health and how long they live, and the lack of these diseases that so many of us suffer from, I mean, the almost non-occurrence of things like cancer, diabetes, heart disease, and all this, and you look at where is it coming from? Yes, a certain portion of it is coming from their diet, but another portion of it is coming from their mental state and mental capacity, their ability to be grateful for what they have, their ability to enjoy one another, their ability to connect, but their ability to meet the essential needs of life. And the first need of life is certainty. The second need of life is uncertainty. I know that's an oxymoron, but I'll explain it in a minute. The next one is a need for significance. And the fourth essential is to be able to connect to and be loved by others. And so these needs create somewhat of a complex dilemma for most of us, because they kind of offset with one another. Certainty is the first need that's essential. You got to have a certain level of certainty to even get out of the bed. If you don't have a certainty that when you step out of the bed, that the floor you're going to stand on is going to be able to hold you up, you're not getting out of that bed. If you don't have a certainty that when you walk out and get in the car, that it's not going to fall apart on you, or that the wheels are not going to come off while you're rolling, you're not going to get in the car. You're not going to make it to work. There's a certain level of certainty you just got to have to even be functional. But then there's also those other ways that you create certainty. Some of us develop our certainty through a sense of identity. We had strong personal figures in our past, our fathers, our grandfathers, our mothers, our brothers, sisters, someone close to us, and we identify with coming from that stock. We identify with who we are. We have a powerful self-image, and so we identify with ourselves, and it is in identifying with ourselves that we have this sense of certainty. It doesn't mean we know everything, but the certainty exists in, I'm built for this. That's something I always tell myself when I'm facing adversity, is I don't even have the answer yet, but I know that I'm coming out of this victoriously because I'm built for this. I know that it won't destroy me because I'm built for this. That's a level of certainty. Now, some other people, they get their level of certainty solely from their faith, who they believe in, how they believe in the almighty power in heaven and God and whatever. They believe in that. Some get their certainty by trying to deceive, whatever. They try to overcome it through deception. I know I'm going to win because I'm a cheat. I mean, it's so many different ways to achieve this certainty, and different people do it different ways. Now, the thing is, there's no governor just in the sense of needing certainty. So there has to be a governor. We're going to get to the governor because it's important. There's a level of certainty. But here's the problem with certainty. When you have certainty at an unbelievable level where you just know that almost every day you wake up how your day is going to go, guess what starts to happen? Start to get bored, right? So you got all these things, you got all the toys you want, you pick a new car to drive every day. You got this unbelievable closet laid out and just stacked. And you go through and you have to go through a process of just choosing what you want to wear. And you've got unlimited funds to do whatever it is you want to do. And you've got this thing and it's just awesome. And you've got all this certainty, but you're miserable. See, I've been there. You wake up every day and you're trying to figure out, why can't I sleep? Why am I miserable? Everybody's looking at you going, man, I wish this, man. Can you show me this? And you're sitting up there and you're miserable. You don't understand it. Because see, that certainty without being challenged creates boredom. It creates a lack of fulfillment. It doesn't drive you. And when you're not driven, you tend to have a sense of unfulfillment. And so you need a certain level of uncertainty to balance the certainty. So you need some things that make you get up in the morning and grind. You need some things that make you feel, if I don't do this, things could get kind of shaky. You need that thing to push you to be better. And that's what uncertainty does. So you need certainty in your life, but you also need a certain level of uncertainty to bring the balance, to keep you from getting bored, becoming complacent, and settling in and becoming stagnant in life. Uncertainty is the thing that does that. That's another need. So you do things to kind of achieve that as well. And then there's this thing of significance. Significance gets a lot of people in trouble. There's a need of feeling significant, and that can be achieved in so many ways. Some kids in early stages with peer pressure, they do things like steal with things they don't have to steal because they think that's going to put them in a positive light with the group they're hanging around. You got other people who will sit up and go get a car that they really don't need or can't afford because they think it makes them more significant. There are other people who find their significance in their uniqueness. The more they search their uniqueness, the more they find their gifting, the more they're able to influence the world around them, and the more they become significant. And they start to develop this significance that tends to bring about a part of this equilibrium that I'm talking about. Here's the thing, though. There's a fourth essential. You've got certainty, uncertainty, significance. The fourth essential is the need to be connected to and loved by others. Now, the problem is, oftentimes when you truly start to find the authentic significance in life, not that you create with materialism, not the thing you create with assimilating, not the thing you create by pretending, but that thing you create when you decide to live inside of your purpose, when you decide to embrace who you are as an individual. That thing, when you decide to do that thing, you tend to separate yourself from those who are connected to and held in place by the boxes and boundaries of mediocrity. So you start to look at those things that you're doing, and you realize why you're achieving a certain level of significance, why you are being revered and respected, while you are feeling good about yourself. You are also in some ways distancing yourself from those you want to be connected to and loved by. And now you've got to find a way to be significant and loved whilst and connected to people all at the same time. And those are the essentials that drive behavior. Now, let me give you the filters. The filters are needs, but they're also what governs the behavior of the first four. The first four, there are many different ways you can go about getting any of all of those, some good, some bad. And so how do you get the full fulfillment of life? How do you really truly aspire and reach a higher level of living? You bring in the fifth and the sixth need, which acts not only as fulfilling factors, but they also act as guides and governance. In other words, number 5 is immensely important. I cannot speak this enough. Intentional growth, an ability to look at yourself, to determine where you're at, where you're trying to go, what it is you need to do, and the ability to grow. And so one of the filters that I place on my behavior when I'm trying to create certainty, and when I'm flirting with uncertainty, when I'm examining my need for significance, and I'm trying to maintain connectivity and relationships of love, I ask myself, is the way that I'm behaving growing me? Are the things I'm doing to create certainty in my life growing me? Are they stagnating me, or are they diminishing me? See, they're either growing me, or I'm stuck in a place, or I'm literally regressing because of the behavior that I am producing or emanating. So I ask myself, this certainty that I'm striving for, is it growing me? Then I ask the same thing about my need to be engage uncertainty at a certain level. Am I growing from this, or is it something that's detracting from me in a certain way? Is it making me better, or is it working against me? That's my behavior. That's something I control. I literally have the capacity to control that behavior. That's where so many people fail, is they consistently think that they are out of control. You're out of control because you're refusing to be accountable for the behavior you're emanating. You're refusing to to gain an understanding of why you're doing it. You're either doing it because you're looking for certainty, you're looking for uncertainty, significance, or connection. That's it. So when you sit up and you're trying to figure this thing out, ask yourself why I do it. Then ask yourself, is it really growing me? Is it really growing me? Am I getting better because I'm doing it? Or am I just finding a sideways method for fulfilling this need I have for certainty, for uncertainty, for significance, or connectivity and love? Is it something that is making me a more potent person in my environment for the sake of good? And that comes to the need number 6. Then I ask myself, am I contributing to the world around me in a better, in a way that makes it better? Am I giving of myself beyond myself? Or am I totally embedded and entrenched in only me? Am I making the world around me, those in my periphery, are they better for being around me, or are they worse off, or are they just simply neutral? Am I doing things that are literally touching the lives of other people? And so when I say, am I growing and am I contributing outside and beyond and above myself? And if I can say yes to those things when I examine my behaviors, then I'm advancing, I'm meeting these needs, these essential needs and these directive needs. I'm meeting them, and I can find when I'm operating with these principles in mind that I'm literally in much more control of my life. I am in I'm much more aware of my destiny. I am focused and fixed on where I'm going. I'm not shaken. I don't become frenetic and unglued when I meet delay, when I meet opposition, when I meet struggles. Something that I heard Quincy Jones say that totally blew my mind not that long ago. He was at this seminar that I was actually uh, online watching. He was there in person, and it was with mentalist Jim Quick. This dude, Jim Quick, is an Asian guy who is unbelievable in techniques that help you remember. I mean, unbelievable. Long story, can't get into it right now, but the dude is a beast. Well, he's having a seminar on memory or retention, item retention, learning retention, how to learn. It's extremely important. There's so many things that we can teach our kids that can make our kids beasts, and we are simply strolling through an outdated, misused, and hostile public education system that works against our kids. But that's a whole different thing. I just felt like mentioning that. But anyway, Jim Quick calls up Quincy and asks Quincy a question. You know, Quincy's talking, you know, the coolest cat you ever seen at 84 years old. He's always been doing, yeah, man, you know, hey. And he's talking. And so he asked this question. And Quincy's answer to the question kind of threw me off, too. I'm like, all right, Quincy, you tripping. But he said, so tell me, with all the things that you've been able to accomplish, with all the unbelievable stars you've worked with, I mean, and on down the line from Ray Charles to Michael Jackson and blah, 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 and all this, you know, the Rihanna world, blah, blah. He's asking all these questions, and then he sits up and he goes, how have you dealt with all the problems that came as a part of being a black man in this situation and all the other things you went up against to do these exceptional and extraordinary things that you've done? And Quincy's answer was, I don't have problems. And I'm like, all right, I go Quincy tripping, because everybody has problems. You know, it's not in the circumvention of problems that you become successful. It is in the response to problems that you become successful. But then Quincy clarified. Quincy said, I don't have problems. I have puzzles, and puzzles can be solved. And I'm like, wow, that simple shift in perspectives completely changed his life. In other words, when you start to see everything as a problem, problems are scary. Just the very word problem makes people's gut start to get all nervous and shimmery and butterflies, and your stress levels go up, blood pressure levels go up, cortisol and adrenaline is released into your body. It's called stress. It's a stress reaction. Now you got cortisol, which is meant to help you manage a stressful situation. Adrenaline, the same thing. It's what's built to call the fight or flight response when you're in a situation where you're life threatening. It's one of the most primitive physiological responses that we have. It's how we stay safe. Our number one part of our design is survival, to be safe. So our body senses danger and it responds to it. The problem is, because we don't know how to think and evaluate things in our lives, we see so many things as danger that aren't dangerous. We see so many things as a threat that aren't threatening. We see so many things that are there to destroy us, that are there to make us stronger and better. But because we don't see them the right way, we see them as a threat, triggering this physiological response of stress that actually totally destroys the body over time. One of the most destructive forces in the human existence is what's known as chronic stress. That's where you're consistently in a state of stress, meaning that your body is consistently producing cortisol and adrenaline and releasing it into your bloodstream. something that's meant to be there for a few seconds and at the most a couple of minutes is now there constantly, and it's destroying body organs, it's destroying mental capacity, it's destroying the ability to remember, it's destroying the ability to reason and rationalize, it's destroying your heart rhythms, it's attacking every part of your body, because after being there in any prolonged period of time of 40 minutes or longer at any given time, it's now attacking. It's now doing the opposite of what it was created to do. And now you've got to learn to manage that. And that's best managed through how you see things. Most of the things that are stressing you out, you can deal with. Stop becoming so stressed behind things. It's the story you're telling yourself about a certain thing that has you stressed out. When you sit up and look at something and you're viewing it through a helpless situation, whether you want to admit it or not, you've taken on a victim's mentality. A victim is somebody who does not have control over a situation that they're currently in that they don't like. No matter what that is, whether it's a bad marriage, whether it's a bad job, whether it's a situation in which something's going on around them that seems threat, whatever it is, that makes you a victim. But the person who's not a victim, the person who is a victor, no matter what situation they find themselves in, sees themselves in a situation they don't like, but they don't see themselves as helpless or hopeless. No matter how bad it looks from where they're standing, they have adopted a mindset that there's something I can do about this. Even if I don't win, I'm going down fighting. Now, what we find out in the world of psychology is when we're dealing with post-traumatic stress disorder, is that people who are in the same identical stressful situation or event that causes one person to develop post-traumatic stress disorder, the other person doesn't. One of the most prominent factors that makes a distinction in the determination of whether someone's traumatized or not by a traumatic event. Being in a traumatic event doesn't mean that you're traumatized. It means you were in a traumatic event. How you process the trauma is going to determine whether or not you end up traumatized. Well, the difference between the one who's traumatized and the one who isn't is the one who's not traumatized had some sense of being able to be involved in escaping or overcoming or surviving the event. They felt involved in the process. They felt like they took action, that they were able to do something. Whether they won or not, they were able to do something with something about the reason that they're still here in whatever capacity that is, that didn't allow them to be traumatized. They felt in control. But the person who didn't feel in control, the person who was just sitting there and felt like it was absolutely nothing they could have done to save them or change the outcome, they tend to be traumatized because they feel the helplessness. And so when you are looking at your life and you're starting to see my behaviors are being guided by these 4 essential needs, and then I can filter my behavior through need number 5 and 6, the need to grow and the need to contribute outside of myself, and I can start to gauge how my behavior is benefiting me by how my behavior is benefiting others. It's awesome when you can look at yourself and say, okay, have I grown? You don't look at yourself and say, do I have that Bentley? Do I have that 7,000 square foot home or whatever it is that you've been looking for? Those are good benchmarks to kind of see if you're making progress in certain areas, but it doesn't measure your manhood or your womanhood. It doesn't measure your capacity to live at the level of your design. It's not a good mechanism or barometer to measure who you are. It helps you keep going. You know, I have my vision board of the things I'm going after this time around. I have them and I look at them and they drive me. And that's good. But at the end of the day, the last question I ask myself is, did you grow? And did you contribute? Is someone better off because you are alive? Or someone today better off because you're alive? And if I can answer yes, then I can say the things I'm doing has growth. And then I turn around the next morning after priming, after I set my state, and I say, okay, let's look for the behaviors that are not conducive to growth, that are not conducive to advancing, that are not helping me help others. They're there. I'm not perfect. So let me find them. Let me work on them. Let me strengthen areas that automatically diminish them. Sometimes we spend so much effort trying to stop something from happening when the actual best approach is to strengthen the opposing force. So if I'm behaving a certain way that's not conducive to the things I desire, then instead of working so much on stop doing it, I simply strengthen areas that work automatically and autonomously in opposing that behavior. And I automatically give to that because I'm more passionate about it, because it serves my purpose, my desire, my need. So as I do more to develop and build it, it automatically dissipates that thing I don't like about myself. So I grow in strength while I'm diminishing the weakness. And that is a part of the process. But if you want to really, truly understand your behavior, you've got to understand why you're doing it. And you've got to understand that it's always to meet a need. There's absolutely no empty behavior. I don't care what nobody tells you. I just did it. No, you didn't just do it. You may not understand why you did it, but you didn't just do it. You did it because it was serving a specific need, whether you could explain it, whether you couldn't understand it or feel it. It was explaining why you did it. You were either looking for certainty, trying to engage the uncertainty to get you out of boredom, because the uncertainty is what rescues you from the boredom of certainty. And so it was either that, or you were looking to be significant in some type of way, or you needed connectivity and love from someone outside of yourself. No matter how much you love yourself, it's that need to be connected. We are social creatures, and social creatures by habit need to be able to connect with others. And the problem is, in this world, the more significant we become authentically, not the illusion, but the real true significance, the more significance we develop, the more significant we become, the more we tend to distance ourselves from the vast majority of people, because our behavior alienates us. Our dreams, our desires, the way we function, the way we engage things alienates us, because there's a certain group of people out there that will automatically look at anyone who's aspiring to do something exceptional in their life and say they think they're better than everybody else. They think they know it all. They think they so good. And that's a natural thing and a natural response for them to provide equilibrium where they are. They need to feel there's something wrong with you for wanting to aspire that way, or they are now convicted in their own mediocrity. So they have to find equilibrium. When you find people that are striking out against you, when you find people that are talking behind your back, when you find people that are sitting up and saying everything they're saying, what they're trying to do is bring about the equilibrium that you've disturbed with your quest to be greater. Because see, once you were where they were, so they've already convinced themselves that there's no out. This is just who I am. Because I didn't know my daddy, I can only be blah, blah, blah. Because I come from poverty, I can only be blah, blah, blah. Because I'm so-and-so years old and I haven't achieved any form of wealth, I can only have blah, blah, blah. And here you come with all of the same factors. Never knew your father, came from poverty, in your 40s or 50s, or whatever age, 30s, wherever you at, and you haven't gotten any of the dreams you once wanted when you were a child. And you're in that same sense that all of a sudden you make a switch comes on, and all of a sudden you want to do something different. All of a sudden you decide you are what your design says you are, not what other people have said about you. You stop allowing people to define you. You stop allowing the opinions of others to move you or impress upon you anything of significance. And you start to live at the level of your design. Well, immediately when you start to live, you start to elevate. When you start to elevate, you start to rise. Now, they have a choice. With the moment that people in your periphery see you start to elevate and see you start to rise, they got a choice. They can either jump on and say, I'm riding the wave of his energy. He's going somewhere. He's going where I want to go. I'm going to mimic what he does. I'm going to find the patterns of his power. And when I find the patterns of his power, I'm going to emulate those patterns. I'm going to practice those patterns. I'm going to model those patterns. And I'm going to get the same success he's getting, because he's no different than me. There's nobody better than me. That there's people doing things differently than me. So when I see that's one choice, I'm going to ride the wave. I'm going to be a part of the team that's being built around him. And then I'm going to go up and I'm going to become what my design says I am. Or they can sit up and say, you know what? He sure is feeling himself. He's not being realistic. He's foolish, he's stupid, he's talking. Look, all that stuff he talk about, look where he at. That's one of the things that people are going to do for you. When you make that decision to make that move and you receive it and you accept it and you see it and you believe it, and you start living life as if you already have it, the first thing they're going to say is you faking. Faking it. Talking about he faking it till he make it. He faking it, she faking it. She ain't got this, she ain't got that. Look, the thing is, they don't understand the total nature of the universe. They don't understand how the Almighty created this thing to operate. So they can only see where you're at. They can only see the tangible. They can see the third dimension. They can see the things that are physically touchable, but they can't see what's happening in the fifth dimension. They can't see what's happening in the fourth dimension. Those places where your thoughts are literally planting seeds that will manifest themselves in your future. They can't see that. So they don't understand why you're smiling and talking like you got $1 million in your light bill. They don't understand that. But you just keep talking it because you are manifesting based on what you're teaching your mind to believe about your life. See, your mind cannot distinguish between what's being imagined and what is real. When you keep telling your mind that you're wealthy over and over and over again, your subconscious mind starts to believe it. It's not looking for evidence. You're telling it it's real. It's looking for what you are consistently saying, what you're consistently believing, what you're consistently holding on to. So you're living in two different realities at the same time, and most people can't grasp that. See, I tell people all the time, the reason I'm always smiling, the reason I always have my head up, the reason I'm always confident, the reason I'm always talking in ways that, in many instances, of things that you don't see yet. Much of it I've already had. A lot of it I already know I have. And it's very little difference to me. The things I've accomplished in my life, in money and wealth and material gain, in academia and all these things that in the total essence, in and of themselves are not that great, but in a total collective proves that anything is possible. Then I have that thing right there is no different to me, what I've already done, than what I have in my mind I'm doing now and I will do. It's all come together. Now, this is what I tell people, and they say, well, how are you smiling, man? When I went through last year, couldn't move, totally physically disabled from the issue I had in October of last year, and having to start over and literally go through rehab and all that, and yet showing up and speaking at places and doing the things that I did and still trying to work and do what I could do in the community and for my family and everything. They asked me, how are you doing this? Back in 2012, when I went through the worst year of my life, I'm being asked, man, you're constantly smiling, you're showing up, you're at these places, doing these feedings, you're doing all these different things, and I know what you're going through. How are you able to do that? I say, this is it. When you truly have an understanding of your capacity to create, when you truly have an understanding of your capacity to design, literally design your future, when you really have that capacity to literally be a designer of your destiny, to literally plant the seeds in high specificity, the seeds that are necessary to gestate and to come to fruition and to harvest and bring about the things that you desire. When you have that capacity and you sit up and understand that, there are two different states you're in. You're in the state of function. You're in the state of function, and then you're in the state of living, and they're different. I function in my now, but I live in my destiny. People say, what does that mean? That means that a lot of times I'm literally sitting in the place that I'm creating. I'm literally walking in the place that I'm creating. I'm literally moving and operating in the place that I'm creating, not just in imagination, but I mean, I'm literally sitting here smelling it. I showed my wife actually this morning about the things that my energy does to certain things in this house. And we just sit back and say, I'm not talking about something I read in a book. I'm talking about something I practice with my life, how my energy, depending on how it's emitting will, like, I light incense at certain times of the day. I can control the direction the smoke goes in when no air is on in the house. And it's just something I actually caught. I'm like, wait a minute. And it does it. It's not just one time, it consistently does it.
And it's at certain times of the day and a certain energy I'm focused on, and these frequencies are resonating. So I'm finding different frequencies of how to operate. What I'm trying to tell you is there's a fourth and fifth dimension outside of this three-dimensional realm that we tend to give so much significance to, and those other two dimensions have so much influence and power. It is in this mind that you begin to design your destiny, your future, how your life is going to turn out. You set the course of life. You set the path. You determine what it is you're going to do with your life. You use certain techniques to develop certain power. This is so much going on that we got to get out of this thing. And people talk about one of the things, now this might pinch and hurt some people, but I'm going to be real with you. And then I'm going to get off of here. People ask me when they talk to me, they go like, man, I would have never thought you would have talked that way, because most people who connect with you know your past and your background in Christianity. And so how do you feel about Christianity? Are you like really frustrated with people in Christianity? And I say, yes. I say, but not for the reason you think. So you're wondering why they, I say, no, there's nothing wrong with being committed to Christianity when you understand it. My frustration with Christians isn't their commitment to Christianity. It's their lack of understanding of the history of the faith they claim. It's in the understanding and the research and the depth of understanding that you follow it back and you get to a purer sense of where it comes from. And you get all of the religiosity out of it, all of the things that were interpolated into it for the sake of control and manipulation, and you get to the purity of it. It all goes back to one thing: intelligent design of an omnipotent, almighty creator that brought this entire universe into existence and then allowed evolution to take control. It's there. It's and people always say, well, doesn't science go out of its way to prove that God doesn't exist? When you try to make it do that. When you look at science and nature in its purest form, it speaks intelligent design. It speaks design. It speaks design in every way. There's a thing called irreducible complexity. There are certain things that are present that if you remove one component or one element of it, it ceases to exist in its state and purpose. And there's no evolutionary process to explain how you get to number 5, 6, and 7 components, without knowing that it's going to accomplish a certain thing when you get to 6. It requires design. There are over 100 different things that when you study them, if one of them were to shift in the slightest varying degree, either way, would actually end life in this universe. And yet we've been here for billions of years. All of this stuff keeps going. So it's not about, in what you look at the truest sense, and this isn't speaking against anyone's faith. This is specifically addressing religion. Religion is simply a very poor attempt at understanding the vastness of the universe, the intelligence of the design, and the inexplicable. And so we put it in a box to explain it. But when you talk about the Almighty, you can't box that. When you talk about the infinite intelligence that brought this together, you can't box that up. And when the more you box it up, the more you limit your potential. The more you try, the more rigorous you try to make it, the more straight line you try to make it, the more you box yourself up. It's when you step out of it and you see the power it takes to bring something this vast together and realize that power resides in you, in the very cellular makeup of your body. It resides in you, not just in power, but in consciousness. I know I'm saying some things that's totally blowing your mind. What I'm saying is believe what you believe. Believe it, but believe it at its purest state, where it actually brings connectivity between you and the designer, you and the creator, you and the Almighty, you and God, you and the universe, whatever your belief system is. If you're not connected, so connected to it that you don't feel one with it, then your religion has robbed you. And I'm just being honest with you. If you can't walk into a world and be an impact, literally say, you know what, I'm going to make it better. I don't care what the situation is. It's not where you come from. It's what you embrace about yourself and what you determine you're going to do. and where you're going. It's people come from all backgrounds, come from all types of situations that decided I'm not going to be a victim, that life isn't happening to me, that life is responding to me, and that inside of me is divinity and power to make this world shift. And through that, I mean, think about it. All religions talk about internal, at some level, God being inside, right? That's this internal thing. All right, just work with me for a minute. I don't care what religion you're in right now. We're not addressing one religion. We're addressing one concept, one principle, one idea. If you're indwelled, if God is inside of you, if you have an internal divinity, how in the world are you helpless? How in the world are you powerless? How in the world are you not able to make a difference when you have something omnipotent inside of you? Ask yourself, how is it that I'm stuck, but I have omnipotent power residing inside of me? Not something I've got to go out and get or ask for or look for. And that's the other thing religion does. Religion provides the perfect escape for inaccountability. When you don't want to be accountable, religion provides the optimal environment for not being accountable. When you got religion, you got the devil to blame for when you do something stupid. You got God's will to blame when something good isn't happening for you. It's just not his will. Nowhere in there have you taken accountability for living life at the level of your design. Nowhere in there have you decided that I was designed to do something exceptional, extraordinary, phenomenal. In my DNA is greatness. It's too easy to sit up and say, well, I made a dumb, instead of saying I made a dumb decision, I made a dumb choice, I didn't do everything I could, I haven't really truly applied myself, I haven't really truly reached down deep inside. It's real easy to say that. It's real difficult to say that than it is to sit up and say, well, man, the devil is real, man, I'm not perfect. And then when it's something good, you should have it. I mean, even deep down inside, you should have it, but for whatever reason you don't have it. Here's the reason you don't have it. You haven't applied yourself. You haven't accepted the responsibility of claiming it and going after it, designing the process it takes to have it. And designing sometimes means bringing something into existence that doesn't already exist. You have the power within your DNA to speak things that are not as though they were. And I'm not talking mystically. I'm not talking religiously. I'm talking about physics. I'm talking about literally moving the energy of your mind to create thoughts that plant seeds that gestate, that grow, that nurture, and come to fruition in your future as the circumstances that you demanded of life. There's no such thing as helplessness. There's such thing as laziness. There's such things as an unwillingness to commit. There's a certain thing as a comfort seeker, that person that's just not going to step outside of their comfort zone to have anything, no matter how valuable they assess it to be, because they don't like discomfort. One of the most powerful things you can do in life, and I'm going to be done, is get comfortable with discomfort. I remember I got to this place in life that if I wasn't sensing a level of discomfort, I became uncomfortable. I know it's an oxymoron, I know, but you know what I mean. I mean, if I wasn't being challenged, if that wasn't something that I could lose if I didn't get something right, I was uncomfortable. I wasn't challenging myself. There's this saying I say all the time that I got from Stephen Furtick. It says that if the vision that you have for your life isn't so huge that it's intimidating you, it's probably insulting God. I wake up every morning with visions and goals that shake the very core. The only thing that shakes the core of where I stand are my visions and goals. They drive me. That's why I can't sleep in. My wife will tell you, if you catch me in the bed past 7, you need to take my temperature. Why? Because there's a world out there waiting on me to grow, because it needs me. There's a world out there demanding something of me, and I can't get it just laying there. I've got to get up. I've got to go out. I've got to And it's not always visible, everything that you get. Stop allowing people to define you by where you are. The truest people, and I've had this happen to me in 2012, when I asked a person, why is it you treat me with such reverence and respect? And the person told me it's because I don't see you where you're at. I see where you're going. I see it already. When you find people that can see beyond where you are currently and support you and respect you and revere you and honor you because of what you are becoming and not where you come from and not where you are currently at, you better love on those people. You better take that because it's rare. People want to judge you by your past. People will try to force you to mortgage your future to pay for that past. People will sit up and try to define you and shut you down based on the mistakes you've made. You better love the person that is able to walk up and see what you are not yet as if it was already happening. That's power. I love you guys. Before I get off, I almost forgot, man. Before I get off of here, the Visionetics Institute is where I actually do my work with people. It's where I work with my clients to help them identify the things that are holding them back from living life at the level of their design, from helping them explore the possibilities of becoming something exceptional, extraordinary, phenomenally far beyond anything they've imagined or looked at, and to step out of that cycle of mediocrity that is so accepted and almost demanded in this world and in this culture, and do that. And what we're doing now at the Visionetics Institute, I've done a lot of this on a one-on-one basis for years. I actually met my wife through this process. It's kind of wild how it goes full cycle. I met my wife some years ago. I worked with her with some things she was going through and got to her. She left. We parted ways. We didn't see each other for a while. We left. You know, it was a professional relationship. We left. I went on doing what I was doing. She went back and took what she learned with me. She wrote a book. She's now counseling young girls who went through the things she went through. And then we come back together, we connect, and we really sync. I've worked on the things that make me a better person for relationships. We talked about that early in this video. And so then we connected in ways we didn't connect the first time. And here we are married now. And it's amazing how that works, but I do that. But anyway, I did that a lot on one-on-one. And what I'm doing now after consulting with a marketing, branding, and PR specialist that I've known literally almost all my life, and they're unbelievably gifted and free-minded in their thought and the ability to achieve, and that's who I want to work with. After talking with them, it's obvious that I'm going to have to create mechanisms to expand my reach that doesn't require so much one-on-one. Still will be doing some one-on-one, but I came up and designed some programs called that are associated with critical mass, and the critical mass phenomenon is the combination of events and courses that I'll be working with individuals in a number of different perspectives, and I've expanded that. The link you see in there is actually my first round of private funding. Private funding in the sense that it's not a company I'm going to take public, but it's a way for investors or people who believe in what I'm doing to actually support the expansion of this. And it's going to be huge because it's going to involve a course. It's going to involve a 3-day weekend event. As of right now, it may expand to 4, but a 3-day weekend event of more than 30 hours of engagement, of life change, not just an inspirational message, not just something to motivate you, but literally the ability to participate and take notes, but also experience a certain level of change during the event. So in this event, you leave different than you came, and you take a set of skills with you that allow you to evolve and change more over time. And I'm excited about that. So that's what's going on with that. But the thing is, man, like I always say, I love working with people to watch them become what everyone else told them they couldn't. There is so much satisfaction. As a person, I experienced it, of being told, you can't do that. Don't you know you come from? Don't you know you never did? Don't you know you can't do that? And then to do it, and then to just look back and not say anything, just look back and smile. knowing that they know what they told you you couldn't do. And I love showing people how to do that with their lives. I love showing people that no matter where you're at, no matter where you come from, it's possible. So this is exciting for me. The Visionetics Institute has allowed me to do some exceptional and extraordinary things in the lives of other people. And that's where it matters to me now. I'm at that point in my life where it's about leaving a legacy. I want to leave a legacy that I came, I saw, I conquered, and I changed lives. That means the world to me. So once again, I thank all you guys for stopping by and spending a little time with me. Depending on what you call a little time, for me, it's a little, because I can talk. Anybody that's going to spend 30 hours on stage over the course of 3 days better be able to talk. And that's something I do with ease. It's just, again, examining my design. I was naturally precocious and, as my grandmother would say, loquacious. I talked. I mean, one of the few things I would cry for as a kid is being told to shut up. And so I found out what it was for. And I'm going and I'm doing, and it's unbelievably awesome. And I want to help other people do that. And so here I am. Again, don't accept other people's definition of who you are. Search yourself, find your greatness, find the answer to who you are. Determine within yourself what you're capable of, not based on the parameters and limiting beliefs of others, but based on the unbelievable, intricate design of who you are and what that opens you up to in the way of potential. I'm about to check out here. As I always say, I'm going to down E. That's a beautiful thing, to live your life on full so that you don't take any of your potential with you into as you transition, that you literally have left it all on the playing field. That is so awesome, to go to bed every day just bet, but knowing that somebody's life is better because of it. That I can't explain it, but it's awesome, and that's what it's about. So with that being said, I'm going to check out. I got a lot of other things to do. You guys are a blessing to me. And most of you are clients. I see a couple of people that have been clients, but most of you aren't clients, but you're still a blessing to me, because any type of energy I can pour into someone else in the way of consciousness, in the way of knowledge, and in creating tools of change, that blesses me, that elevates me, that gives me a sense of consciousness and power that I can't explain. So you guys are a blessing. With all that being said, I'm going to check out of here. You guys, make today count. Whatever you do, make it count. And don't forget, click that link and go support what we're doing in the Visionetics Institute with the critical mass phenomenon. I'm out of here. Peace.